But this innovation conversation is bigger than just whether or not we get a chance to have inspiring manufacturing or great tech or a new product that launches that changes the market. Innovation actually starts really small. Innovation actually starts in the basements and back alleys and warehouses and fields where you're like, how do I solve a problem? And today I want you to really try to see yourself as an innovator without you having to prove that you're huge. Innovation is tiny things that create huge impact, and every one of you can start that. So let me introduce you to these amazing humans. First things first, Leeza Zurwick is a visionary behind Happy Gut, which is a company committed to promoting gut health through the delicious and nutritious water kefir beverage. Based in Castlegar BC, Leeza is started in Happy Gut in 2017, so that's a huge transformation in a short period of time. After discovering the transformative benefits of water kefir, she launched into something that she believed in with her whole heart. She's passionate about creating employment opportunities, and because of her background in special education, she does that within her company. Her leadership has been known for a commitment for health and community. So welcome, Leeza. Yeah. Some of you got to hear shortly from James. I'm excited for James Donaldson to be here and actually have a little more of a conversation. He's the dynamic CEO of BC Food and Beverage. This is the largest industry association representing food and beverage manufacturers across British Columbia. With nearly 30 years' experience, James has been the driving force of fostering innovation and growth in that organization and in the province. And since 2014, he's expanded the BC Food and Beverage reach, offering invaluable support to training, networking to businesses of all sides. So welcome, James. And finally, Benny Bopari-Gill is the co-founder and president of Farming Karma, a family-run business in Kelowna, renowned for its award-winning fruit and beverage drinks. With deep roots in farming, Benny and her family have built a brand that champions sustainability and healthy living. Farming Karma's innovation, low-sugar beverages have earned widespread acclaim and major distribution deals, positioning that brand as a leader in the industry. Welcome, Benny. So I'm a trainer and coach, so I always kind of want to start with what does the term mean? So when we talk about innovation, where do we start? So my first question to each of them is, what does innovation mean to you personally inside of the business or the organization that you have? And I'm just going to start at the beginning. Benny, you're right up front. Let's go.
I think everybody... Just hold it. Let's go check. Okay. I think everybody's going to be tired of listening to me talk by the end of this.
Absolutely not.
Innovation to me is doing something in a new way. You don't have to be the one creating it, but maybe you take a traditional idea and you reinvent it to fit your new model. Creating something that hasn't been done before, or finding a more efficient way to do it. That's what innovation means to me.
Nailed it. James.
For me, innovation is one of those words that gets used so often that it doesn't mean anything anymore. And I find that, companies in BC brands are so humble about what they do, and they don't think about themselves as innovative. And then I think about, the types of grant programs, and if you want to get innovation funding, it has to meet a very specific definition where it's transformational, it's brand new to the world. How many of you need brand new to the world technology to run your business, right? You just need an adaptation of something that already exists to be able to kind of continue to do what you do, just do it better and more efficiently. And so I always kind of define that as incremental innovation. Our industry is all about incremental innovation, which is just a minor change, whether that's a process, whether that's an ingredient, whether that's even a marketing or a way of approaching the market. But that doesn't meet sort of the typical grant funding government definition of it, but that's what's most relevant to the industry here.
I agree. Thanks for sharing that. Leeza.
So I'm just going to be a little bit different. For me, innovation is going back to the earth and starting all over again, because our food systems become so many chemicals and preservatives. And so for me, what I've been working on is just pulling it all back and going right back to being like natural and pure. And let's get healthy, and let's get better, and let's be more knowledgeable about companies like Kellogg's is so in the news right now. People are really trying to ban them because it's all chemicals. We've been raised on Fruit Loops and stuff. So for me, innovation is actually going back old school.
I love it. So I want to think of innovation kind of in stages. I've got 5 stages. We'll see if we hit them all. But the stages I've selected are really kind of like the evolution of food as they move from farming and harvesting all the way to the point where they get into the marketing in the hands of the consumer. So we're going to start kind of in the first stage of discussion around farming and harvesting. And not everybody on the panel is related to harvesting and farming, but they're related to it when it comes to ingredients. But I'm going to start with Benny as our farmer. Benny, tell me a little bit about using new and old techniques in order to be innovative in terms of your farm. And because you have more than just farming, we're going to cover some of your other business ideas. Let's just hit the farm to start with, farm and harvesting.
So yeah, we do the farming, the harvesting, and then also starting this year, we're doing all of the sorting and the packing of the fruit as well, which ties into farming too. The one thing that I'm most excited about, which is new this year, is the sorting and the packing line that we have for farming. It's employing a new AI technology, which I know is a buzzword for a lot of things, but really the focus for us is how do we get more back into the pockets of the farmers. And one of the biggest challenge with harvest is that you know, when the apples run on the line, the retailers have very specific requirements of the sizing and the coloring of what's required. If the machine is too stringent, it ends up putting a bunch of good apples into the cull bin, so it goes to waste. If it's too lax, then a bunch of bruised apples end up in a bag and the retailer's not happy. So it's like state-of-the-art technology that we're employing. So what it does is it teaches itself. So essentially it'll take images of the apples and it'll ask me, do you want this to go to the bag or to the bin? And then over time it learns and it becomes incredibly accurate, which means that no good fruit is going to go to the cull, and that means that more return is going to go back to the farmers because we can pack more of their fruit. So that's something I'm very, very excited about, that I think that we're one of the only ones doing that in the area.
I'm so excited about it. So I came out of BC Tree Fruits in a packing facility out of Creston, and over time, those packing facilities expanded to the point where they each had their own, and so they have visual, not AI, but visual tracking for cherries, because that was our big market. And it hugely changed how much actually went into the farmer's pocket. So I really, the adaptation of AI is super curious for me. I'd love to hear more at some point. Can we just double check? We got a little bit of echo on some of these. It's okay. Do you mind if I borrow yours for a second, Benny? Check, 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 echo, echo, echo. Is this working? Hello? Echo, 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 yes, no, red, white, blue. Check, check. Can I give you that one? And then we'll just use 2.
Yeah, we can just share.
Yeah, we'll share with 2. What I'm interested Hilarious. This is so fun. It's, you know, the sound person is invisible and underappreciated. Technology is an asshole. So I love you. I appreciate you. You're so important to this working. Thank you. I want to ask James, I know we talked a little bit about, even though you work in manufacturing and processing, I want to talk about raw ingredients and the relevance of raw ingredients in your storyline.
Yeah, I think that's probably, is this one working? Okay. I think that's probably the biggest opportunity for processors. Everybody needs to differentiate themselves. Everyone's got a great brand story, but you know, the more they can rely on local ingredients, and you know, what we're trying to encourage and what we're starting to see more of is really innovative partnerships between agriculture and processing. Sometimes I've heard agriculture say, well, why aren't processors buying more BC inputs? But then I'm also hearing processors saying, well, why aren't farmers growing more of what we use so that we can actually use it and purchase it? So I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and we've seen some bigger companies and even some smaller ones really start to set up those partnerships. I think it's a great opportunity. It reduces risk for farmers. It closes the supply chain as opposed to waiting for, inputs to come in from all over the planet. You can actually getting it from, 100 miles away or maybe just down the street. So I think the more we try to do that, I think especially with climate change and the different things that we've experienced certainly in BC in the last 5 years, it really starts to tighten up that supply chain and allows us to be more self-reliant. And I think on long term, that's going to be really important for BC.
Me too. It creates a really financial, secure sustainability between groups. Leeza, I don't understand the ingredients that come into yours or where these farming pieces fit. Can you speak to anything that I might have missed with you?
For us, we have one supplier for our juices. It's Pacific Coast Fruit out of Vancouver. So when they run out of ginger, we have nowhere else to get ginger juice. It's quite complicated when you're doing a fresh product. So it's about supply chain for us a lot of times.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. So if we move away from farming and harvesting, which if you look at you guys in terms of innovation, this is one of the areas where I see BC Food and Beverage being useful, is that they have a membership group that is so large. If you're like, if I have an idea, but I don't know if it's gonna work, his team and his membership maybe go, yeah, we've tried it, let's duplicate some aspects. So remember that you don't have to think of everything yourself and do it on your own. But if we move to the next stage, which is really preservation and value-added processing, that's really the main part of where you're going. So Leeza, I want to talk to you about the preservation side of it, because preserving a live beverage is really interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about the innovation that might be inside of that?
Yeah, so when I started in 2017, I was in glass bottles, and everybody was in glass bottles at that point. And then I started seeing people going into cans, and to drink fermented drinks out of a can was the weirdest thing. And now, in 2024, there's no companies that are doing it in glass anymore. Everybody of water kefir, kombucha and water kefir are both fermented drinks, but they're two separate cultures that are used. Water kefir is a completely different drink. So in water kefir, everybody has gone to cans now. So the sustainability, the recycling of the cans, that is something that I had to shift. In 2020, glass wasn't available, lids weren't available, so we had paused our brewery and regrouped and bought all of our canning facility, and we've gone over to cans. So yes, more, it's lighter and easier to move.
One more time. And there it is. Love it. Benny, obviously preservation of your product is a big deal. It's a different style of product, not as active ingredient, but still relevant. Tell us a little bit about that. Do you mind?
Yes, we learned about preservation the hard way. I'll share an incident that I don't really want to publicly announce, but it happened. So when we first started, we were pasteurizing our juice, and everything that goes from the pasteurizer to the tank, everything is all covered. There's no air exposure except for the brief second that it goes from the filler into the can before the lid slides on. It's literally like a second. And we, from the beginning, didn't want to be using preservatives. It's something that our client base really wanted to have a very clean ingredient list. So we didn't add any preservatives. We thought it was enough. And these were just test batches. And after a few weeks, the cans started blowing up. It was only our family or friends had them because they were trial cans, and people were saying they're going off in the kitchen, what happened? And we were panicking, and we learned the hard way that there's airborne yeast that can sneak in even if there's any window in there. So then we were kind of struggling to figure out, do we need to add preservatives? How do we continue this? But there's something called after canning pasteurization, and typically the large manufacturers have something called a tunnel pasteurizer. So it goes in one end, it heats it, and then it it cools it to the other end, and it's all good because it's pasteurized after it's sealed. But when we were first starting out, we didn't have the capital to invest in a big machine like that, so we kind of had to rig our own system of how to do after canning pasteurization. It was a big water bath, and we got a consultant in. We made sure it worked. The science was there. We tested it. But yeah, it was important for us to not have preservatives, and sometimes that can be very tricky, even without the live culture, because there's a microbiome all over the place. Even though yeast is not harmful, but it'll cause the cans to explode.
Story, thank you. And sometimes the war stories is sharing the war stories of what you have to build is part of how you help other people too.
Yeah, I think it's really important to share your failures as well, because it normalizes it. Otherwise, people only see the highlight reel, as we know, and it can be very discouraging. But I guarantee you, we all have messed up so much along the way.
Yeah, the essential part of success. Give me a little bit, tell me a little bit, do you have an example in your team of members that you could add to this? And if not, that's cool too, but just give me an idea of what kind of preservation and manufacturing side, because that's your core work.
Yeah, I'd say probably the biggest transformation we've seen, especially even in the last year, has been around packaging. Yeah. You know, I mean, federally, they've really been trying to reduce the amount of single-use plastics, which is really important. It gets really complicated when it comes to plastic that touches food. And you know, because I mean, it's not just the substrate that it's on. I mean, there's food safety issues, there's shelf life issues. You can't just change to a different substrate and have the shelf life, because all of a sudden we've reduced plastics and we've increased food waste by 40% because now we can't ship from one side of the country to the other. Now so it's kind of interesting that they're sort of implementing policy to affect plastics, but the market hasn't really caught up. So it's fueling a lot of innovation around the types of, changing that, but there isn't a commercially viable alternative yet. I mean, I love that there's a lot of work done on compostable and biodegradable packaging, but, municipalities don't accept them. So there's a lot of that work that needs to happen, but that eventually we're going to be having to move away from plastics. There just has to be an alternative. So that's been a big part of our advocacy, actually, is pushing back on at least the timeline to make sure that there's something to replace it with. We all remember when they eliminated plastic straws, and then nobody could get paper straws because nobody had actually planned, well, where's the stuff going to come from? So we can't have the same thing affecting our industry because it's just too important.
Yeah, well said. So when I think of it in terms of the group out here, I want you to remember that when you think of some of the manufacturing often we think about the cost. You're like, how do I scale from operating out of my kitchen or operating out of my field or operating out of the store? How do I get to this next level? And so one of the innovations is actually where you have organizations that are filling the gap in between. So I want to share a quick story about brewing. So microbreweries in the region, one of the things that they've been able to access is a portable canner that came out of Kelowna, and they've come and canned. So they're Okanagan Canning, and then they have a Kootenay division, and they go around and they can for different organizations on site. So in my community, Creston, Wild North Brewery, they get their product canned on site by a mobile canner. That is an innovation in the interim before, and so that they don't have to actually have all that canning equipment in their own building. The other thing that they do that I feel is quite innovative is the breweries work together in the region, not only in that canning way, but they help distribute their product or pick up items. If somebody's sick or a van fails, they go and help each other. And so this is a version of cooperation that I think is very special in the Kootenays and the Columbia Valley, and so we should be proud. But just think about working together as creating security between us. So that's part of the innovation. So we're going to move into the next section, which has to do with distribution and logistics. So my background is distribution and logistics. That's what I was an operation manager for BC Tree Fruits in their packing and distribution. I was also responsible for Labatt's export and raw material distribution and warehousing for their contracted warehouse. So I feel really strongly about Rebecca's project and what her and Damon are doing. In this group, you guys have done some innovation and also have some challenges. Let's share some of that. Lisa, I know you have a big, both solving your own problems and the challenge in it. Share that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's, besides money, the number one stumbling block for me, getting my refrigerated products around the Kootenays. So I am a regional company. We service the East Kootenays, West Kootenays, and Boundary with our drinks. That's as far as we can go, because that's as far as I'm able to get refrigerated distribution at a fair rate. That's another really big piece of the puzzle. So yeah, but I do a ton of driving as well myself. If this week one of our drivers that we use was on holidays, I was, who's left? Me. So that's why we're staying regional, because I can get in my vehicle and take it if I need to. And so, yeah, it's a constant. I'm so excited about Rebecca's project. That's why I'm like, hurry up, hurry up.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Benny, I'm going to sneak to you because, of course, you guys have such an interesting, so you have a couple of things that you do that I think are fantastic. So one, how do you distribute product? What innovations may have you been using yourself besides you? And if it's just you, that's gorgeous. But I'm also interested, you have a media trailer and a media piece of your business, and I wonder how, if at all, that relates to how you've been working with distribution and logistics, whether that's created an opportunity for you to partner. If not, that's cool, but I find it fascinating.
Yes, that media trailer was an idea that, we thought we were going to do a lot with. We wanted to do social media engagement, bring in other producers and local partners and do podcasts and things like that. When we were in the earlier stages of our business, it did get used a little bit, and then the reality of running a small business caught up, and it just kind of got off of our list. So right now it's nothing. So
excellent.
Hopefully
Good to know.
That's my goal for 2025, to kind of reconnect with the community. I've been so focused on just growing and surviving that I feel like I'm missing out on that engagement that I got originally, and it can be a very isolating place. So hopefully we can do more of that. Logistics is a huge pain point for us. We're not refrigerated on the beverage side, but still, the delays, like anytime you get a shot with a retailer, and your shipping is delayed, they charge you. You have to get there for the exact window, and if the trucking company doesn't get there, we get charged back for it. So you have to coddle them the entire way through. For some of the local regions, the pricing is outrageous. So our product is kind of heavy, so I can't just ship it myself through Canada Post because I make no money. So what we've seen is a lot of smaller companies that are just doing a route. Like they're just saying, I'm going to go to Oliver Associates and come back once a week. And they kind of pool orders from a bunch of small businesses. And so that's something we have been doing in the Okanagan region. Lower Mainland is different, but in Okanagan, I think that has worked really well, and hopefully that model will expand. It allows opportunity for so many people to pool that resource and do it in a viable financial manner.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's true. I think that's one of the beauties of the Columbia Basin in general, is that it's relationship. It's like somebody's like, oh, there's enough people, well, I'll buy a van and do it. I'm just going to take care of that part because I can make some money doing that. And so it ends up being a secondary contracted business. It's not even about what you're doing, but yet there's enough people who need it. So very cool. James, can you add anything? Because that's, your large network of people, how are they moving stuff around? See any innovations in there?
Yeah, well, I'd say the only thing that's probably just as valuable as money, which you reference, is time, right? So entrepreneurs don't have time to be shipping their product around because they actually need to be making stuff, right? So, yeah, that's why I think I connected with Rebecca, about a year and a half ago? Yeah, and I was so excited to hear about her project because it's a problem that we hear about all the time, and obviously the smaller the business, the bigger the challenge. If you're not big enough to be using a distributor or shipping direct to retail, it's an enormous problem that everyone has to deal with. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing I've seen in a while.
Have you seen any solutions in other locations that you can be like, cool, or is it just like everyone's kind of fighting their way through it?
So there's an organization on Vancouver Island called Because, which is actually, it's a consignment-based distributor that kind of specializes with small businesses. They're generally focused on Vancouver Island, but I think that there's opportunity maybe for that model to be replicated. That they're technically a charity, so they're a nonprofit charity organization, and then they do it on consignment. So they're always looking for brands and everything. But it's Vancouver Island's a little bit unique. It's a very it's like obviously a closed loop because they're separated. Yeah. But yeah, having opportunities like that, but we need more of them because it's it's a common problem that we hear all the time. I wish there was some simple, I wish there was a magic wand we could wave, but no such luck, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I'm going to sneak back to Leeza because she didn't share something, and this is the thing where we started at the beginning, where sometimes we don't feel comfortable bragging. I call it contextual bragging. It's appropriate to say when things are happening in an audience in which they're interested, so this is the opportunity. Leeza, you just had an opportunity to look at distribution and work with Amazon and got featured as one of their businesses. Tell me a little bit about that experience. Tell me how that's working for you. Yeah.
I'm a super real person, so when you're going to talk to me, you're going to go, okay, so a year and a half into my business, I was on Dragon's Den. So that's kind of like an ultimate goal for a lot of people. That is going to make, my life and everything. I didn't take the offers. I did have offers. So for me, I kind of, in my head, I started at the top because it was like, that was the goal. That is a lot. Like there was thousands of people in line auditioning for that thing. So getting on the show and living what has happened since, it's all hard work and perseverance. So we sell our DIY kits to make water kefir yourself on Amazon Canada and Amazon US. We also grow our own water kefir cultures, so we sell thousands of packages of these cultures so you could make it at home yourself per month. And so we've been on Amazon for probably 5 years. And Amazon is a love-hate relationship. And it's come to our company where we can't live with them and we can't live without them because they sell thousands of packages of our products. But oh my gosh, the drama of working with Amazon is so stressful. Anyway, so they asked me to do a survey and in June. And my coworker was like, okay, be kind, be kind. So I was very, very kind and did this survey. And they reached out to me and they're like, you know what? Your company is showing exemplary sales in Canada. Would you be interested in being a featured company for Q4 on Amazon? And so I was like, yeah, of course. Any marketing is like, what a bonus. So I spent some time down in Vancouver in September doing video shoots and photo shoots at Amazon. So that was very exciting, working with the team from Amazon. And so our company feature will be coming out here in the next few weeks. And then it's going to be a year-long feature. So it's really exciting. Yeah.
Good job. Welcome. Okay, so if we move past distribution and logistics, not that we could spend a whole talk just about that. Let's move into, if you think about innovation in terms of operations, innovation in terms of financial management, those are areas when you think, so innovation is taking ideas and making them practical. That's the main part of innovation. So the theoretical or idea side is not innovation, that's imagination. Innovation is the practical steps of applying it or making it happen. So tell me a little bit about the operations. So when you think of operations, and that is one of the main parts of manufacturing anything and changing that. So I'm gonna ask Benny, tell me a little bit of the financial side. You talked in your talk about it. Tell me some stuff that you're really proud of, stuff that you put together. Yeah, I know. Contextual bragging, love. This is the time. Tell me what you're proud of.
So I come from a finance background, and you would think that would make it be so that our books are perfect, and they're just not, just because our business model is very complex from one end to the other. And so one of the biggest challenges that we have is tracking inventory. There's just so many cans, so many boxes with each new product line, each new flavor, and it directly impacts our finances because I need to budget for that inventory. Like if I buy 50,000 cans. They're sitting there. My money is stuck there until I can sell it. So how do I keep better track of that? And so I'm just employing something. I haven't proven the concept yet, but I'm very excited about it. We're just in the phases of getting onboarded through this new ERP system. It's called Icicle, and I did discover it through BC Food and Beverage. And there's a few examples of companies that are part of BC Food and Beverage that are using it. It essentially allows you to track everything from the moment you place an order all the way through your manufacturing supply chain to where it's sold. And if I ever wanted to track any random lot code, batch code, it could do it within 2 minutes. So having that sort of transparency all on one dashboard, it's going to be so amazing because it's going to allow us to better plan our cash flow for the next year and not be caught in surprises that I ran out of this and I don't have money for this. So hopefully that concept proves itself, but we're still in the beginning phases of it.
That's super exciting. That's amazing. And I would suspect that's a big investment, which is part of the uncomfortable part of it, is you got to really invest at the front end.
Yeah, so there's, I think, softwares that you can license and kind of buy out, and then there's some that you can do monthly subscription. The buying out is cheaper in the long run, but it's a bigger investment up front. But because our business is very unique, because we need to track all the way from bins of apples that the growers are bringing in all the way to like Costco shipment, we needed something that they could really tailor make to us. So we did end up going with a monthly model. So it's easier on the wallet as you go, but it is an added expense that I didn't have before. If it does what it's supposed to do, it will save me so much money down the road that it would be worth it. But it's hard to get started for sure.
Amazing. So this is your chance. I mean, what are the other organizations that are doing stuff? Brag on them. And the only other thing I want to bring up is brag about your own organization. You've recently got an award yourself for being innovative in your own company. Just the operations and the financial part are a big part of whether or not something works or not.
Yeah, well, first I'd like to file a complaint because Benny stole my answer. But she brought up a really good point about ERP. It's not a high margin industry any of us are in. And so so when it comes to operationals, I mean, that's where a dime makes a difference. So, understanding, having to track food safety and traceability and operational efficiency and all of those things, tracking those the more manual you are, the more risk averse you are. So being able to make investments in the types of technology that can help you track and measure those things and be efficient. And what I'll say, of course, you're right, it's an investment, right? Like Benny already touched on that. The challenge, though, is when you develop those good habits early and you have those systems in place, it really pays off in the long run because you're making sure that as you scale your business, you're doing things the right way.
Yeah, I say it all the time. Be careful you're not scaling your errors.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, right? Problems just become bigger if you're not doing them properly at the front end. So we've seen businesses, trying to focus on sustainability, and they don't have those good habits. And as the more they grow, they're actually realizing their risk is growing, not their opportunity. And that's the opposite of what we want to see happen.
Okay, I'm going to make you uncomfortable. We'll see if you do it or not. You've done a lot inside of your own personal organization in terms of operations and really looking at how you wanted to make a difference, not only for the province but really in the industry. You're off in Ottawa, you're doing the different things. Tell me a little bit about your personal vision and innovation you're trying to do for your own organization.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a source of pride for me because, 10 years ago, it was pretty much just me, and now we have a team of 8, which is awesome. And I always like to say that, I used to do everyone else's jobs. They all just now do it way better than I ever did. But you need to be able to scale and grow because the problems that the industry has are not small and they're not simple and they're not, they're complex and they require dedicated focus. So, as I mentioned this morning, we've tried to develop a business model, and I didn't know anything about non-for-profit. I didn't know anything about government relations when I started 10 years ago. So when I kind of came in, I thought, well, we need to build a business model that makes sense. We can't just wait for grants to come and do nothing if they're not there. I mean, that's not a model to build on itself. So we've tried to kind of build, create other revenue streams as a nonprofit, but it's really just all of it gets invested back into trying to add more value and find different ways. So now we're developing a curriculum to be able to help training. The one thing we hear about smaller businesses, when you're fortunate enough to be able to hire someone from the outside, you've got to hire someone pretty green, and then you have to take a lot of time to train them, and the opportunity cost to take to train them is it takes time away from the business, just like driving around in a truck all day. So, how do we kind of create, virtual tools so people can upskill new employees without having to invest a lot of that time themselves? So that's something that we're working on and launching next year.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Lisa, tell me a little bit about your adjustments. Like, you've done a ton of innovation. I mean, your company's not that old. You're just a baby and you're just rocking it. Tell me a little bit about the operational innovations, financial innovations that you might be proud of. No pressure.
You know that little pink binder that Mandy showed us yesterday?
I do.
We run on standard operating procedures. So we have binders and binders of SOPs. And so when WCB came in last week to do an inspection of our facility, and he started asking me questions, I'm like, okay, right here, right here, right here. And it was a really proud moment because anybody can step into our facility and do any job and have a binder. So that is a really, really important aspect of having your own business, especially when you're yourself. And as Kendall explained yesterday, when something happened to her, it was like nobody knew where the passcodes were and stuff. So yeah, I'm just really proud of our standard operating procedure processes that we have in place.
I'm so excited. We're getting into the bragging side of things. You hear them? They changed from it. I'm so proud of you. Good job. Yeah. Operations is really interesting as a function or a role. As a person who's been in operations before, one of the things I've noticed is the Columbia Valley, the Columbia Basin, the Crested Valley, the areas, the Kootenays, there's not a ton of experienced operation managers in our environment because we don't have a ton of manufacturing and we don't have a ton of, and so when somebody gets to that stage and they're trying to hire somebody, we don't have a huge pool of experience here. And so when we're talking about bringing people in, it's really interesting. And so I feel like when we think of innovation, trying to build that skill set inside our region, I think is really relevant. And so just bringing that up and saying like, I think that boots on the ground, grow as you can kind of development is often what we end up having to do. And so being able to access each other's history and experiences so we don't always have to be brand new at it. Because operations is a big area. It's a huge, either can make and break your profitability. So we have one final area. Now we did start late, and because we're awesome and we all want to go for lunch at the same time, we're going to forego the question and answer period, even though it's my favorite, but it's just the way it worked. I want you guys to recognize that this group, each of us is going to be wandering around. We love talking to people. I'm going to be on the side. I have a little thing there that if you want to hit my QR code, you can find me. These guys are going to spend a couple of minutes afterwards if you want to grab them. But regardless, we're really happy to have you use your own ideas and your own experience, your own crazy things. Come to us and ask us. That's what we're here for. It's personal attention. This is not just Lectureville. That's why we love the expo so much. This is all about human connection and intimacy. So come and find us. So the last section of questions is related to marketing and customer engagement. It has to be really close to my heart, but I feel like innovation in that area is where we really can shine, especially in small businesses. It's kind of like guerrilla, boots on the ground, scrappy way of figuring out how to relate to people. So again, bragging about what you're really proud of, what you've done, how you've innovated. I'm going to start with Lisa again, sorry, and we're going to go straight into it. Lisa, tell me a little bit about how you've done marketing, consumer engagement that makes you feel really stoked.
So when it comes to Instagram, it's, again, a love-hate relationship because you can't live with it, you can't live without it. Because if you're showing where you're coming from and what your company's up to, that gets people interested. But showing yourself on social media every day is not easy, or coming up with ideas is not necessarily easy. But in this day and age, it's just something you have to do. When it comes to packaging for us, less is more on our packaging. When we were developing our can labels, we went to the liquor store and just kind of stood back and looked at the labels and stuff and went, what stood out? And what stood out, there was no, like the labels with no noise on them. Because there's so many pictures and graphics and everything. We wanted to keep everything really, really simple. And clear and concise. So that's worked out for us because our branding is very nice and clear.
Oh, it's super noticeable when you lay it next to all the busy versions that are also in there. I love the cleanness of it. Gorgeous.
Another piece would be introducing a seasonal product. Like this has been, to see our invoices jump so significantly when we launched our new product in September. So it's only available, it's a limited edition cranberry orange spice that's only available till the end of February. I didn't realize how amazing that would be for our invoices. So I strongly suggest if you have the ability to launch something just for a short time, that brings people's eyes back to your company. You're not boring. Oh yeah, it's just Happy Gut, right? They're like, oh, cranberry orange spice. Wow, that sounds really delicious. And that brings the customers back to your product again. So that's been really transformational for us as well.
Thanks for sharing that. It reminds me also that there's a real lean towards non-alcoholic drinks, and we're coming into a season where drinking alcohol is just going to boom. I came out of wine and beer in the Creston Valley, so I really can see the numbers and that impact of non-alcoholic drinks and where people are heading. The millennials are just in a different space, and so what you're saying is really interesting. Benny, tell me a little bit about where you're at when it comes to innovation in terms of marketing and yeah.
One of the really unique things that happens to be our special advantage is that we have a physical location where it's an agritourism location. Our manufacturing is located on our cherry orchard, and there is an RV park, there's a dog park. People can come to the tasting room, and it's been so amazing because we get visitors all over Canada, across the border, and even like people from Europe that have been coming. They come here on vacation every year, and they visit us. And the type of connection that you make with a customer when they come walk through your facility and have that one-on-one is something you cannot replace with any other sort of marketing, in my opinion. The reach is more limited, of course. There's only so many people that are going to walk into the door, but bridging that gap between farmers and consumers and having them come there and watch you do what you do, I think has been so incredible for our brand. But to reach a larger audience, social media is it. We love it, we hate it, we have to accept it, that's what it is. I think one of the things that has really been working is collaborative posts. It goes back to leveraging existing networks. If I have a following of 1,000 and you have a following of 1,000 and they're different, and we do a collaborative post, now it shows up on both our timelines, right? And so kind of doing those type of collaborations with other small local businesses that have audience that overlaps with us has been amazing, and that's something I'm gonna start focusing on more. I really have this idea of having, I mean, there's so many podcasts out there. Everybody has a podcast, but I really want to be doing what we're doing here, but more on a regular basis, where it's just accessible through social media, bringing on other entrepreneurs, talking about challenges and things like that. So I'm just going to say, if anybody else is interested in doing collaboration posts, or I'm compiling a list of people that might want to come join me on that podcast, send me a message, and that's a 2025 thing. But I think that that's a huge way for us to support each other and grow together and not rely on paid advertisement. Just use each other's reach, right?
I'd listen to that. Do you have a name?
Yeah.
Do you have a name for the podcast?
Well, the presentation was Ready, Set, Grow, so I'm kind of considering that as a
Ready,
title.
Set, Grow. We're gonna watch for you. Please go and sign up if you guys are interested. Isn't she zesty? Don't you just want to hang out with her? 100%. Yeah.
Come hang out with me.
Yeah. Your last comments, James. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're talking about creative marketing, sometimes it's a matter of taking advantage of opportunities that sort of fall into your lap. So I have to share the story of Grandpa Jay's.
Let's do it.
They're one of our smaller members, and so they make seasonings and spices, and they came out with a line of steak spice a year and a half ago, and it's called Van City Grind. And these two sisters, they're wild and they're amazing, but they started off this company, and I guess Ryan Reynolds' Twitter handle was Van City Ryan, I believe, or Van City Reynolds. So anyway, their brand name came out, and I guess he had heard about it and posted something about it. He goes, well, I'd sue them if their product wasn't so amazing. And now, if you want a product endorsement from Ryan Reynolds, can you imagine what that would cost? I'm thinking probably about $500,000 US to start. I mean, that's probably like 10 years revenue for them. So, but they leaned into it, and they got so much exposure, and it's led to listings, and they've, expanded their product lines now. So they sort of took that one thing that they took, and, it's over a year ago that it happened, and they still are talking about it and raising it. So it's really amazing. And then for us, from an association perspective, the one thing that we hear about from our small members is they want exposure and visibility. Like, Vinny, you mentioned that on your presentation this morning, and it's so true. So we actually, this year for the first time, we did as a bit of a test, but we're definitely going to do it next year. We took an assortment of our smaller members' products and put them in branded bags, and we recruited 12 sort of BC influencers and sent them off and had them do product testing, and starting to share them, and then they're all posting videos. We ended up getting 500,000 views cumulatively from the 12 influencers of the brands. So it's like, that's not something that we normally do, but it's like, geez, if our members need exposure, let's, like I said, we build what we do based on what we hear from our members, and they need exposure, so let's give them that. So it was something that new that we tried, and so next year we're shooting for a million views for doing it again. So.
Cool. This means you need to go and hang out with him to find out how you get involved in that baloney, because that sounds fun. I want to call it, but I want to end with you guys recognizing that admiring them is only as good as it moves you to actually implement something that's innovative in your own business and organization. So these people are just regular humans. They're just people that just did some stuff, and it happened to work, and that's going to be your story next year. So take something, do something interesting and new, try it out, and realize that what you can do in the future is actually just the small thing you start now. We'd love to spend some time visiting with you, so we're all going to just hang out for a couple of minutes. I'm going to turn this over to Shauna so we can eat. Say thank you to the team.
And thank you, Amber. What a dynamite facilitator. Thank you, thank you, thank you.